So what's the lowdown on Tobermory 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey from the Isle of Mull? Well, it's 12 years old, fully matured in ex-bourbon casks, 46.3%. You got to get that extra 0.3. It's also unchill filtered, and it is natural in color. Doesn't that sound fantastic? Let's see what it's like. Stay tuned for Whisky Whistle. Greetings, whiskey friends. This is Mark from the YouTube channel Whisky Whistle, where I've been bringing great whiskey and spirits reviews since 2015. What have I got on this episode today? That is Tobermory 12-year-old. Now, this is an updated bottling that came around about 7 years ago. So, well, that's a pretty long time not to change the bottle shape. 7 years is a very long time, is what I mean. Anyway, 12 years old, 46.3% ABV. That gives it a little bit of an edge, that 0.3%. It's unchill filtered, natural color, as I stated, and a very, very nice color. So this is what 12-year-old natural whiskey looks like from a bourbon barrel. Okay, from an ex-bourbon barrel. Decent little squeak there. All right, let's get that poured in the Whisky Whistle Glencairn glass. A nice little pour, I would say. Look at that. I think that's well beyond an ounce and a half. I should probably pour less, but it looks so nice in the glass, doesn't it? When you are sipping at home, however, pour less than an ounce, sip it slow, take your time. And in fact, in this review, you'll be able to follow in real time from the pouring to checking out the color, checking out the nose, the palate, and the finish, neat, and then also with water. And then I'll give it a Whisky Whistle Whisky Score. I'd love to hear what your score would be and what your tasting notes would be. Make sure you put that in the comments, okay? And before we get started here, don't forget to subscribe. There's a little green looking button over here somewhere. And I think it's just off the screen. You can find that there. And then hit the bell, ding ding. That way my reviews will be queued up in your YouTube feed, all right? And if you have been watching a lot of Whisky Whistle, you may want to go one step further. Check me out on Patreon. Become a patron of the channel by joining the Whisky Whistle crew. And you can find the patron end credits, kind of a little thank you at the end of every episode, every main review. All right, enough chat. Let's get into the color. All right, quite a coppery, very deep coppery hue. And I think that is something that is just fantastic. Coppery, bronzy, lovely. I'm using my laptop bag as a little mat here. That way you don't get the clunk, which makes a lot of noise for the mic, actually. And yeah, I would say thanks to the patrons, to the Whisky Whistle crewmates, I'm able to, get a nice mic and get a good setup, some good lighting and so on. Not to mention, I think I can afford an extra couple or 3 or 4 bottles a year, plus a little bit of equipment. So fantastic. I'd love it if you felt the desire to get in there yourself. That would be great. So we'll check out the nose. That's neat. Now, ideally, we would leave this for about 12 minutes before we get into the nosing. From the bottle, sweet toffee, grassy, herbal, wonderful. And as I said, Tobermory happens to be one of my favorite whiskeys. I mean, I've got a lot of favorite distilleries, but it is one that I have come back to a lot, and I've covered quite a few times. And whether it's Tobermory or whether it is Leche, I've also purchased a lot of independent bottlings. And I think, have I reviewed it? Yes, I did review. That was a North Star, I believe. North Star, Tobermory. Was it a Tobermory? I think it was. I think so. I think it was much older, actually. 20-something years old, if memory serves correct. I could be wrong. There was also a very nice high-strength sherry-matured Tobermory that was very lovely. An official special edition. Very nice. I can't think of what that bottle was, if it was Tobermory or not. Anyway, into the nose. Classic whiskey single malt nose. Toffee-like, grassy, medicinal, mineral, marine, and I always get this scent of, it's going to sound weird, and every time I say it, it's always the same thing in my mind. Icing sugar dusted parsley, or parsley that's you've dipped it in a little bit of icing sugar and then you eat it. You get that intense freshness, the chlorophyll from the parsley, and then the intense sweetness from the icing sugar. Anyway, so a slight smoky note, and it's what everyone considers to be that Scotch sort of a slightly smoky note that you get that's different than Canadian or Irish or American whiskeys. Okay, lots on the nose there. I'll come back into that, but let's get into the palate, and a big cheers to you, a big cheers to the Whisky Whistle crew. Wow, boom, 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 super intense, zingy. It's almost sparkly. These are, if it's not all first fill, we're talking more than half first fill here. For other bourbon cask whiskeys, I'm thinking Glenmorangie, their higher strength offering, what was it called? Not unlike Glenmorangie Astar. Astar featured air-dried oak, almost all first fill, and that was bottled at 52.5%, and this is coming off actually much more intense than that. And it's 46%, but it's more like it's going on 50 or 52% actually. Coconut, citrus, toffee, vanilla, some lemon zest, sweet lemon zest, or maybe the kumquats, little tiny oranges where the skin is a nice sweet part and the inside is very sour. I gotta use this hand. But it's just really very zingy and effervescent. And we got to add some water. The finish, some tropical fruitiness, a little bit like juicy fruit, the gum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 drops. Now, in the archives, you'll find Tobermory 10-year-old, Tobermory 17, Lecheg, the Sinclair Series Rioja Cask, and Tobermory 17. And that was a Tobermory from North Star that was 26 years old. I actually have a review of this bottling from 5 years ago. Then there is North Star 10 years old. And I've got, that's a North Star 10-year-old. And then the original 10-year-old, at least from my tenure, dating back 10 years ago, along with the Lecheg 10-year-old from 9 years ago. So pretty substantial little collection. So do check that out. I'll put those links in the description. There's a lot of stuff in the description, and I think these days people aren't really paying attention to that, but I put a few comments, a little bit of some tasting note teasers, a little intro, a little blurb, stuff about what has come before or what's coming next, and chapters and all that kind of stuff. Of course, the chapters are there that you can use and skip ahead if you don't want to listen to me dither on like this. That has really calmed down the nose. Toffee, marine, salted caramel. And those British toffees, you get the long skinny one and the fatter one, and they all come wrapped up. It might be called Cadbury's, I don't know, Cadbury something or other. And there continually is fewer and fewer chocolates in the box that's the same size as it always was. Thank goodness we have laws about whiskey that they can't suddenly put 680 milliliters. So you do get a real indication of inflation with your average whiskey price. Okay, so very nice nose. I think I really like that with water. Still very zingy. A little bit less so. We've still got some tropical notes in there. Juicy fruit. A very nice finish. A little bit dry. Okay, I'm going to go in to about 3 milliliters of water. So then the question you might have is, why is one whiskey more intense at a certain strength than another? There's a whole host of reasons, but in general, it is just simply the volatility of the chemistry inside the glass. That's coming from the wood, it's coming from the fermentation, it's coming from the malt, it's coming from the yeast, and am I missing something? From the speed of distillation, the type of still, condensation rate, how much copper it's come in contact with whilst in vapor form, not in liquid. It does not matter if it touches copper in liquid form. What matters is while in vapor form, hitting copper. That's a mistake that I made myself distilling at home, running ice in the bucket, in the chilling bucket, and I think just cool water is fine, and if the water's a bit warm, it's fine. All right, anyway, am I missing something? The previous content of the cask, the type of wood, whether the wood was dried or air dried or kiln dried, and how old the wood is. All of those factors impact the intensity. I think another thing I didn't mention was the cut, whether the cut is a fat cut, a narrow cut, whether some of the heads have been included, because you get all these different little pieces, and so it's just a matter of putting that puzzle together. All right, anyway, I believe Tobermory stills to be quite fat. This is why Lecheg is probably a peat lover's darling. If you're an Isla nut and you're poo-pooing on Lecheg, then I need to talk to you. You should check out Lecheg. Now, that really quietened down the nose. And I'm really getting the marine, the coastal sea spray-like mineral notes. Still a little bit of citrus in there. The toffee has dissipated. So a little bit of water was better for the nose, but I think we're going to see something nice on the palate with all this water added. I could add more. This is definitely one where you could add a full teaspoon and you'll be the better for it. It's still very zesty. It's still a little bit effervescent, although less so. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm getting a little bit better access to the herbal components, the dryness, dry herbal cough candy, the Ricola, a little bit of Ricola in there. Well, curiosity has killed the cat once again. Okay, we're very near 1 teaspoon now. And we should see some Scotch mist, some flocculation coming through there. So we're down below 40% now. And we can see the color change. There's a more lemony look to it. Again, here's the original, and there is the water added. Okay, so definitely proving the chill filtration, the fact that it's not chill filtered. All right. Soft, a gentle breeze. Still a little bit of that parsley in there. Now we're talking on the palate. This is ideal. Crisp, citrusy. You get that little bit of chlorophyll, herbals, a little bit of juicy fruit in the finish here. Clean, dry, herbal, juicy fruit finish. And I'm super thrilled with this. as I always have been, and this again, I've been babying this bottle to make sure that I had a respectable amount of liquid. I think I wish I had something more like about here. But sometimes when you have a nice whiskey, especially when you're starting from scratch again, things tend to disappear more quickly. I don't have access to my full collection right now. Okay, well, hope you enjoyed that. Leave your tasting notes in the comments, okay? Now, let's get into the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for Tobermory 12-year-old. What is that going to be, folks? It's going to be 88 out of 100. You heard it, 88 out of 100 is the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for Tobermory 12-year-old from the Isle of Mull. This is 46.3%, unchill filtered, natural in color. And you get that nice cork. Can you see that there? That is the shape of the Isle of Mull. What's the orientation again? Might be this way, but it might not. Anyway, very nice cork. It's a composite cork, which is great. Doesn't disintegrate. And a very nice, simple feel with that wood cork stopper. All right, well, thanks for watching. Make sure you share your tasting notes, as I mentioned. Let me know your thoughts on this review. Give me some comments about what you'd like to see next in a future review. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. Again, those credits are coming up right at the end here. And what is next? I'm going to get into something a little bit different. And this one is not a single malt, although it is Scotch whiskey. And that is the Talisman 9-year-old, with all 9 years being matured in Portuguese Reserva casks, Portuguese red wine casks. They've mentioned here in Korean, this is full maturation. It's not a finish. This is a limited edition of 4,800 cases, probably 12 in a case. So 12 times 5, about 60,000 bottles. That's a lot of bottles, but really like it. This is in fact my second bottle. So stay tuned for that. And any more hints, I think that's good for now. We'll see you very soon. This is Mark signing out. Take care and see you for the next one.